growth-oriented goals. Um, I'd like to start out with knowing from all of you, if you were to summarize from your personal experience, what is the problem with goals for you? Like, what's the problem? What would you say? So go ahead and unmute yourself and just hop on and popcorn it.
I always make my goals like huge, pie in the sky. My expectations of my own self are 10 times that of what is, and then it becomes an all or nothing. Like on my way to reach that goal, I start off hot and then I realize, hey, that goal might have been, and instead of adjusting the goal, I just quit.
And what would you say is the actual problem there? Like what's at the root of that problem for how it affects you personally?
I end up not setting goals. I end up just quitting the whole process, like, okay. And just free-forming life.
Right. Who else?
So I really enjoy setting goals. I think it's super fun. What I don't like is having to track the work to get to the goal. Like planning is my jam. Let me plan all day long. But once I have to start actually working the plan, I'm like, ooh, I don't know about that anymore. I feel like some of that just stems from I make it out in my mind that I have to do everything like day one, where what I should remember, or I try to remind myself, is that as long as I'm doing a small piece every day and chipping away at it, I'll get to that goal. It's not all or nothing at once, but it does kind of feel like that, Laura. I think I'm kind of saying something similar to you. Like it feels like in the beginning, I've got to do it all right now. It's like, that's not the point.
So have you had a successful experience with chipping away at something every day? Or is that still kind of like an idea that you want to do but hasn't actually materialized?
Yeah, when I don't think about it and don't notice it, yeah, I actually, it's so funny that we talk about goals because I just found this sheet. I was cleaning stuff out yesterday, which has 5 and 10 year goals. And I looked at it and I actually wrote it 5 years ago. And so I was like, no way, this is crazy. And so I was looking at some of the ones and I've crossed, I think there's like 11 things on here and I've accomplished, I think 8 of the 11, but it was because I didn't think about them anymore. Like I wasn't like, oh, am I getting to these numbers? It's like when I didn't think about it and just showed up and did what I know I can do, I was fine. But it's like my brain's getting in the way.
Well, that's also a great example of how, and we're going to talk about this, how goals need to be aligned with what direction you're already going or what direction you're intending to go. Because if it's already aligned, then you are going to get there. Like it's inevitable. And so we're going to talk about that. That's awesome. Christina, do you have one?
Yeah, these are also great. Like it's bringing up even more things for me. I think let me go with what first came to mind when you asked that prompt was like I get a lot of satisfaction even just thinking of the idea and the goal. And then I feel set. I'm like, cool. That feedback was enough to give me that hit of satisfaction.
So different people get dopamine
and have that satisfaction and then never actually do it. And then also I'm trying to teach myself how to like see goals, I think more as a problem, think of the pain point and the problem and like kind of more high level. Like I want to have a steady stream of income that helps me, be less anxious when I have to pay my credit card bill, rather than like imagining all the possibilities of what I could do to be making. I don't know. I guess I'm like, if it's not this, what my potential is, then I don't want any of it. Like what Laura was saying, all or nothing sometimes. And so trying to teach myself to be more clear, try to frame goals for myself, less about the outcome and more about like, what will I benefit and like, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve so that the solution can be a little bit more flexible. Otherwise, every new idea I get leads to more new ideas, and then I never actually act on any of them.
And different people get dopamine at
Try
different part
something.
in a process. And so it sounds like a few of you are the type of people, Hunter, I'm thinking of you too, where you get the dopamine hit comes from the ideas and the like, oh, imagine if I could do this, not from the fulfillment of it. Are you the same way, Laura?
Well, and what I was going to say is what we all sound like is these kick-ass project managers with shitty employees.
There's no one actually doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Lauren and Amanda, so that we can go on, can you guys put it in the chat if you have a chance? And then I'll call on you guys next. To make sure that I'm respecting your time. And Amanda, I know you're there somewhere. What's that?
Supposed to put in the chat?
Oh, you didn't hear the question because I didn't realize that you were in the waiting room. The question was, someone tell her what the question was because I don't know what it was.
Something about how you see
What
goals.
would you see? If you were to just describe what is the problem with goals for you? Like what?
Okay.
And Lauren, I want to hear from you too, but I want to go on. So actually, Amanda and Lauren, if you want to kind of if you want to answer these next questions and stick those into your answers, that would be great. So I want to ask you, like when you've thought about either accomplishing these goals or not accomplishing these goals, questions to ask yourself are like, how did it feel? This is going to be a long list of questions, but I want you to just gravitate toward a question or two that like really resonates. So whether you accomplished your goal or not, my question is, how did it feel? How would your life have been different if you had met the goal, assuming that you didn't, or how would it have been different if you hadn't met the goal? And who did you become as a result of setting the goal? And how would your life be different if you hadn't made the goal at all? And so in these different questions, you'll get positive or negatives depending on how you thought about the goal and the outcome of the goal. I'm going to give you a personal example, and then I want to hear kind of how this resonates or how it fits into you. So in college years ago, so what I'm going to do is give you two examples from my personal life, one with a positive outcome and one with a negative one. And I want you guys to think about what the differences were. So this is about, these two particular ones are about health, and health is just one thing. It's not everything. It's just a very tangible, easy to describe goal. So in college years ago, I was trying to make myself run on this beautiful cross country path, which I would do like once or twice and then not do it anymore. And one time I tried to force myself to do it by telling myself that if I showed up every day, it was like a way to represent, gosh, it was like I decided to make it represent my entire being as a responsible person. I don't know how else to describe it, but it was like, I made it mean like everything about me, thinking that if I made it this big, huge thing, then it would motivate me to do it. And what do you guys suppose happened? Lauren, what would your guess be?
Too much pressure.
Right?
So yeah, it didn't happen. Or if anything, sorry for the noise, if any steps happened towards it, it was more like of a weight and pressure than it was a relief and motivation and stepping towards the ultimate goal. I feel that.
So I did not, so the outcome of making the goal was not just failing for me, but it was also allowing myself to believe negative things about myself as a result, right? So fast forward to this past year, I decided to do this impossible goal challenge, which I can tell you more about as one option for how to make a goal for yourself if you're interested. But the goal I gave myself was huge. It was to lose 100 pounds. And so that's why it's called an impossible goal. And I made that goal a year ago, and last year I lost about 30 pounds. So did I meet my goal? No, right? But I also became a person who was much more open to being healthier in general. I was much more able to say no to the sweet tooth that I happen to have. And I believe about myself that I'm capable of losing weight, which honestly, I didn't even really have that belief before because it had always been so hard for me. I feel way better. I'm more athletic. It's easier for me to run around and chase the kids, to do more stuff with them, to do the daily living activities that I have that I struggled with before. And I also accept completely that the prior year, that the years prior to last year, I didn't have the capacity to work on that as a goal. And so I accept that the weight I gained over like the first year of COVID and all of that kind of stuff wasn't like a moral failing on my part, but it was me just living life. So how would you describe the difference between both of those experiences of not meeting my goal? Amanda, do you want to share any thoughts on that?
Good. Unless you want me to.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other thoughts on like the difference between those two goals?
Well, I feel like what's interesting about the impossible goal is I think this idea that, the likelihood of me actually losing 100 pounds in this time is slim, but because you shot for the moon, you kind of pushed yourself as far as you could go. Whereas previously, maybe if you had said, I want to lose 30 pounds, it would have been much harder. Maybe you only would have got to the 5. Like the idea of shooting for the moon and then making it as far as you can, you didn't seem to trap yourself that way, and you already knew the likelihood of me accomplishing this might be slimmer, so you weren't as mean, it seems like, to yourself afterwards.
Right. Yes. So this is what I want you to take from all of this, is this one huge shift in perspective. The goal of a goal is in who you become as you move toward it. The goal of a goal is in who you become as you move toward it. And you can see the difference in like that thing that happened years ago versus last year for me, that like it was about who I was becoming. And I became something I wouldn't have become if I hadn't set that goal. So was the goal a success in my experience? I would say yes. Did I meet the goal? No. So let's go ahead and dive into these specific tips. And the first two are about how to think about what type of a goal to set. And then we'll move into how to actually like progress in them. So number one that I have as tip number one is to remove shame, obligation, and negative self-talk. That's huge, right? As many of you know, I already have like a whole training specifically on shifting your self-talk, and one-on-one coaching. I also can really retrain those patterns. But even if you can't snap your fingers and rewire that thought framework, just me telling you this and acknowledging that this is something you want to grow out of is probably a bigger step than you realize. So with this step, my big question is the goal that you have in mind one that you personally truly want to accomplish, or is it something that you feel pressured into, or that would make you feel like it would feel good about yourself for the sake of others? So my question here is, are the goals that you kind of have in mind, maybe that are floating around, is it something that you have an alignment with to like, this is the direction I'm going, this is the goal I want to have? Or is it like, lose weight, everybody thinks that's a good idea? What do you guys think about the difference there?
I'll say for me, and I'll use a personal example, is I've spent 99% of my life setting weight loss goals and sometimes achieving them, sometimes not. Last year I changed that and I set some fitness goals, including things like being able to participate without hesitation when somebody invites me to something. It's not necessarily like, some of them are measurable, but some of them are just like not dreading, like, what's the weight limit on horseback riding and what's the, like, there's some things, and ultimately my goal is just to be able to participate in life without that limit. The byproduct has been that I'm losing weight. But, and it's funny because I've kind of taken some of the, I don't know the right word, I've taken the, no pun intended, weight out of the number on the scale, to the point that even when I've lost a significant amount of weight, I'm like, okay, there's the number. Like,
It doesn't mean anything. Yeah, that's powerful.
no, and I find more satisfaction in being able to go to the water park and run up and down the hills with my kids and participate. Like, there's my, and I think that in doing that, one of the lessons that I'm hoping to learn is that when I find that inner drive, that inner motivation for the goals, I think that that's what makes the difference versus the getting my house organized or cleaning out the junk drawer or whatever the whatever the more outward me feel better about the people around me and the things that are important to me.
Nice. Any other thought on, well, actually, question, have you guys experienced like a lot of shame around setting goals and failing them? Lauren says yes.
So I pretty
Yeah.
much, I remember like setting goals was always, before, I don't know, a couple years ago, it was always just shame filled. It was always setting, like y'all were saying, setting huge goals and dreaming them up, because that's fun. And then not being able to actually sit down and go deeper and say, like, why do I want this goal to happen? Why did I come up with it? Am I being motivated outwardly or by others? And even not being able to break it down into steps, you know? And so I stopped having goals. That's about where I've gotten to. And I love lists. I'll write lots of lists of things. But I don't know, it's almost just to get it out of my head and not to actually do anything about it. So,
That's really good recognition.
so I've just recently come back to goal setting and wanting to dive deeper into them. So I haven't practiced goal setting in years.
Nice. Yep, I hear you.
Yeah,
Christina?
yeah, I'd agree that, yeah, I stopped setting goals, and I think I don't want to like say something out loud to like a family, and then they follow up and they're like, oh, how's that thing going? And I'm like, oh, I changed my mind about it. So I like stopped telling people what I want. And then also, like, people really want to help come alongside me. And I don't know what I want. I don't know if I'm have a goal because I think it sounds good and is safe, or I have a goal because I want to. And people are really eager to come alongside and help, but they're like, Christina, what do you want? Like, put me, like, we want to help, but I'm like, if I say it and then you follow up with me and then it didn't happen, I just don't, I guess I'm like avoidant of that disappointment. And so, yeah, I stopped making goals as well. And I don't know that line between, am I doing this for me or am I doing it because I think I should? And I don't have really a litmus test to tell the difference until it's like kind of too late. And I'm like spinning wheels and being like, so you don't actually want this, just stop.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a really important acknowledgement, even realizing that you don't know what your process is for knowing, is it me, or is this just what I've been taught to want, or taught that I'm supposed to want? And that's actually something I love helping with people with. So I'm really glad you're here. I think this will give some clarity. So number one, remove shame, obligation, and negative self-talk. Number two is make it a start goal, not a SMART goal. So how many of you have been hindered by the fact that there's this SMART framework for goals that has to be measurable, and what are they all? Achievable. What are the other ones? Do you remember? I don't remember either, but I know that they're all a bunch of things that are related to, you know, oh yeah, time, I think is the T. So it has to be this thing that you can absolutely know that you can accomplish. And that's what like the goal is, right? Or that's what the idea is behind a SMART goal, right?
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound.
Oh, okay. Nice.
This
Did you
is
look that
Google.
up?
I did.
Nice. Thank you.
Well, and I will say that as much as I've heard a lot about that, it's one of the stumbling blocks for me, in that I feel like it sets me up for failure a little bit, in that like, oh, I'm going to lose 100 pounds. And then my head starts going, well, if I want to lose that in, just to make the math easy, 10 months, it's 10 pounds a month. But then if that first month I only lose 5 pounds, done.
Yep. Your entire
Done.
year is ruined.
So I think that for some things that works, but I would say that it's actually a block for me.
Yep.
In that some of my goals are a lot more passion driven and not measurable and not time bound and not like, and though I'm more successful with those goals than I am with the other stuff.
Yes. So
I like that.
this phrase that I have, and I just came up with this, is like a START goal is the goal that gives you the dopamine to get going, right? And a couple things about that is you get going, and it's aligned with who you are and where you're already headed, not something that's just like way out over here when you're actually meant to be going this way. And so that's kind of what I say when I say a START goal. And I'm pretty sure that all of the people in this room have ADHD or ADHD tendencies. And so, so I think that's part of it too, is that like, we're not gonna be driven by these measurable things like other people might be, you know? So my question for you, and you guys can put it in the chat if you can, is what is a goal right now that feels invigorating to you and feels like it is aligned with the direction that you want to go? If you guys have a goal that you want to bring up, I don't know if it would be relationship oriented. It does not have to be tangible. It could be something like, I mean, it could be literally anything. If you have one that's kind of that you kind of have in mind, even if you haven't like 100% decided, then we can kind of use that as our framework for moving forward for the next part of the process. Connect, I like that, connect with friends. Oh, Hunter, I didn't know you were thinking about moving to Chicago. Run a marathon. Nice. Flexible schedule. If there's anyone who can't like type right now, you can say it out loud too. So step number 3 is And this one's really important for me. This is actually something that I got stuck on for a long time. And again, if you have executive function challenges or have a hard time counting out, like creating the entire process for a goal, this is a really, really key point. So I said, take 7 steps backward to find the first step. So what I mean by that is that usually if I have an idea or a goal, it's like, oh, I can't even think of, but like, actually I have an example that I can just share with you to give you an idea. So there's been a few times that I've actually tried to create small group workshops just like this one that you're in right now, and I could not get like anything to happen. And what I realized was that my process would be like, I want to do a small group workshop on this. And then I'd be like, date, time, announcement, bam, and then crickets. And the problem was that there was a lot more connecting I needed to do, a lot more research I needed to do. There was a lot of pre-steps that I needed to do before just like setting it up and doing it. And so I'd like to hear with your goal, like, what do you think is the first step? So like a great example is, Hunter, your first step is probably not to pack your toiletries. Right?
Right.
So what do you think of as a first step?
So I feel like one of the first steps I've already started making moves towards it was, number one, like visiting the city. That's the step that I did not take when I moved to Austin, which I loved Austin, so it worked out really well for me. But visiting the city and getting a feel for what that's going to be like. And then also one of the other steps that I've done that's been one of the first ones is kind of looking at finances. Okay, because I currently live in Kansas where it's really damn cheap to live. And it's like, okay, cool. What kind of numbers do I need to be running? What does rent look like? You know, public transportation, blah, 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 blah. That way I feel more comfortable with the jump.
Nice. What about you, Christina? First step to finding a new job?
Well, right now for me, I need to like totally revamp my portfolio and resume. But I think even before that, thinking about the shame and obligation, negative self-talk is what's coming up for me.
I really like that. So you have to be confident in who you are before you ever show up for a job interview, right?
Well, because what happens is like those start creeping in, the negative self-talk creeps in. So like if I can really name it so that when I see it creeping up, it doesn't shroud that. But thinking 7 steps before making a portfolio. Yeah, thinking of the thing that has been stopping me from redoing my portfolio.
I have another one.
Okay, yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah, that's the major one. As I'm making my portfolio, I'm like, just because I have experience doing this, I don't know if I want my portfolio to reflect the roles and jobs that I want to be working on. Not necessarily like, oh, I've done this, so I'll just put it on there.
Yep.
And forcing me to be like, did I like it? Am I good at it? Does it come? Do I want to learn more about it? Is this?
Those are great questions. Write those down. What are some other things that you could do, some steps that you could take to come up with your want?
Doing it sometimes helps invigorate me. Like the question was like, what goal right now is invigorating? Like just doing it instead of like thinking of the stuff I have done. I think just always moving forward and improving to myself, like, look, you do like this and people do find value. Because that's the other thing. I think just because it comes easy, it's not valuable. Like
yes,
I lose sight
that is a
of
belief error.
what my value is. Yeah.
Another thought I have for you, and here's just an example of how, like, once you start thinking about what the problem actually is right now and what the first steps are, it kind of opens your mind to a lot of other ideas. And one of them, honestly, for people who aren't sure what they want to do is like join a temp agency, like do different things for 3 months at a time, or you know what I mean? Like just fill in for people and discover what it is that you like. And I'm not saying like that has to be the next step. I'm just saying like, look at your options. Like once you start thinking like, oh, I actually don't know what I want. Well, if that's the problem, then the solutions are very different than I need to write a resume.
Yeah, I'm tracking. I actually just asked someone like, hey, how'd you get this job? And they're like, a temp, an agency. And they gave me the info and phone number, like literally like
Nice.
an hour ago. So I'm tracking.
I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Awesome. Do you guys have any other thoughts on that as far as your self or your first steps that you want to take? I really, this one to me, like, as someone who has a hard time, like, well, what I finally discovered is I think that my thoughts always jump in right in the middle of the process, not at the beginning ever. And that's why for me, saying like 7 steps backwards is like a lot of stuff has to happen before that. And that's why you're not able to accomplish this one thing, is because of all the things that you need to, like the small steps you need to take to get there.
One of the things that I really struggle with is narrowing down my focus. Like somebody says goals and my brain just explodes into this whole like whiteboard of chaos, and instantly my brain goes to, okay, so construction, house, family, friends, financial, health, like it just like this mushroom cloud of ideas. And so I think that the first step for me is to just take a step back and take a breath and focus on one thing versus I'm going to make all the things better.
And you actually proved that by putting like 3 different goals in the chat, right? So let me coach you on that for a second. If it's all or nothing, then the choice you make about which goal is going to like determine your entire life. Right? But is it all or nothing? So if it isn't all or nothing, and if it doesn't have to be do or die, then suddenly making the choice of what you're going to think through becomes a lot easier. Would you agree? So when shifting that, you know, all or nothing thinking to like, what if I just picked a goal and see where this process takes me?
Yeah.
And think about the goal that would be the most likely to incorporate other goals too. Like, and again, that shows alignment. Like, if I am working on this goal, likely I'm going to end up doing these other things because it'll show this alignment, you know, because that's the direction I'm going anyway.
That's hard for me because I start down this path of like, well, so I have to do this first, and then I know it turns into like my ADHD cleaning where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wash the dishes. In order to wash the dishes, I open up the bottom cupboard, get the soap out, realize the bottom cupboard needs organized, and it turns into 8 hours and my dishes are still dirty. So goal setting is similar to me.
So if you have a SMART goal, then ADHD cleaning is not going to work for a SMART goal.
Right.
But it's not the ADHD cleaning, I'm using that as a phrase, right? That's the problem. The problem is that if the goal doesn't allow for your natural style of accomplishing things, then it's the goal that's the problem. So my challenge for you is how can you create a goal that assumes you're going to be ADHD cleaning?
Yeah.
So think about that, and you know, think about how do I naturally accomplish things, and assuming that there's no shame or morally negative thing about the way that I accomplish things, because there isn't, then how can I create a goal that incorporates like my real human self rather than like a SMART goal is a great idea for like a robot because everything is measurable, but that's just not human. It really isn't human at all. Which brings us to number 4, which is,
Can I say something really quick?
yes,
Or-
go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say because like a few weeks ago or like maybe over a month ago, like my boyfriend was saying how he needed to make business cards and I needed to make them too, and like we had a plan to do something completely different last night, and then all of a sudden we were making the business cards and they got done, and I kind of realized like, oh, like we kind of had this swirling to-do list and we do end up getting it done when we feel like it. And like we were kind of in a rush doing it, but it was like we did it, and I realized I'm always in a rush doing it anyway, so I might as well just do it that way.
Yep. And when you said swirling to-do list, I imagined like a whirlpool with a bunch of little papers floating in it. And you like dip your hand in and whatever you fish out is what you do that day.
That's it, I think.
So, and yes, I agree that like what the problem with goals is that, well, and this is a question that I've asked before. I've said, actually, I was in conversation and my husband Michael was there and we were just in a group and I was like, the interesting thing about goals is like, if I had set a goal last year to lose 30 pounds, could I have felt good about myself last year because I lost 30 pounds? Yes. And then I was like, what if I had set the goal to lose, and he didn't know that I had, what if I had set the goal to lose 100 pounds and I lost 30 pounds? Is that 30 pounds mean less? And he actually like made a face like, oh, like you didn't meet your goal or whatever. And it's so funny how automatically you think like, well, if you didn't meet the goal, then the amount of progress that you made doesn't count. But if the goal was exactly in alignment with the amount that you actually did lose or whatever the goal is, then it counts. And it's like, that's so like illogical that you just created your own, like you made up a goal and then you get to decide if you succeeded or failed. And usually like you fail, and it's like, that is like a completely made up like mindset that does not serve us. And my goal here is to create goals that serve us, right? And so I bring that up because Amanda, your comment is like, since you didn't make the goal of doing the business cards last night, did it count? Was kind of what your brain was like worried about. And you were like, no, it's okay, it counted. And that's so important. All right, so number 4 is who you are becoming. So focus on the question, who do I need to become so that a year from now, I'm the kind of person who can achieve this? That's like $1 million question right there. What are your thoughts when you hear that?
I think about, right, thinking of ourselves as like I think of myself as like a little experiment. Like, okay, let me see how I'm going to respond to a remote work life, like a remote lifestyle, because it means that I can do XYZ if I'm remote. Like I am remote, but I'm like, I want to give it a second shot. And maybe there is a job that I do like working remote. Anyway, like, so thinking about what I want to learn is similar, I think, phrasing to like, who do I want to become so that I can achieve this job?
Mm-hmm.
And in that, I think that's also helps me get away from that all or nothing mentality of like, I'm just kind of like collecting data on like, how do I respond? And like, is this making me closer to that person I want to become, who is then equipped to achieve that goal? That's kind of what comes up for me when you say that.
It.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. I love our new friend. Oh, Lauren, he's precious. I have the biggest smile on my face. You can't see, but thank you.
Other thoughts on kind of the goal of a goal is who you're becoming in the process. I want you to chew on that a little bit.
What I like about that is it focuses more on like habit building. So the goal becomes easier than like whatever specific steps you're supposed to take regardless to reach the goal, where it's like, okay, who do I need to be specifically? And just like you said, like it takes you into account, which is huge in a way that I haven't really thought about it before. So it's a really cool perspective where it's like, it's not what can I do, it's who can I be. And that's very, very different. And for me, at least, that seems way less overwhelming. I've got a million things I can do, but who do I want to be?
That's good. It also is a double-edged sword, and I want to actually bring this up because in the process of doing like the impossible goal, you look at like, okay, who do I need to become to accomplish that goal? Which is a great thought, except that if the goal isn't aligned to who you are supposed to become, then it actually becomes a problem. So a great example of that is that whole like ADHD cleaning chat that we had a minute ago, is the if you're not really, if it's not necessary for you to become someone else, but it became necessary because of this goal that you created, then you're, you know, asking of yourself to do things in a completely different way that might not actually benefit you. And so, and just because like society says like, oh, well, if you clean this way, it makes, you know, it's categorically better, then you're gonna like be, you're gonna succumb to that. Again, the belief that is society related instead of personal. And so it's important that when you ask the question, like, who do I need to become? Then you want to make sure your answer is either, well, this is who I want to become to reach this goal. And I want to become that goal.
Come on. I can't.
There we go. So if you become, you know, if this is who I want to become anyway, then this is a good goal for me. If I look at who do I need to become to reach this goal, and you say, I don't want to become that person, that does not feel aligned to me, then that is like, then it's like, okay, change the goal so that the goal is aligned with the person that you actually want to become. And so I don't know, I think that that's a really important question, but I also think that it goes both ways, and it's important to recognize like that you're in control of both those things, not just one or the other. All right, so then the last thing, I can't find my notes there. The last thing is, and I kind of mentioned this already, but this is so important. The goal serves you. You do not serve the goal. You are not a slave to the goal, right? The goal serves you in the way that you want it to serve you. And so everything that you do around making this goal and following through on this goal needs to be aligned with how the goal serves you. And a couple of things about that is celebrating results, and that includes the tangible results and the intangible results, which when I shared with you my weight loss process last year and how many things that I could celebrate that are not tangible at all. Things like, you know, just believing that I can lose weight, you know, acting, treating my body in a different way, like all these things, the way that I think about food, the way that I think about my own needs as a whole. Those are the things that like have gone into who I am becoming. And so a lot of the who I am becoming part is intangible. And yet it's at least as valuable, if not more valuable, and actually leads to more meeting of goals and than the tangible results, in my opinion. So be proud of what you accomplish, no matter how far you get, and if you didn't meet your made up deadline, then focus on how the lifestyle that you're creating makes the goal inevitable. So I have absolute belief that I can continue to lose weight this year, even though I didn't get to 100 pounds last year, right? Or 100 pounds down last year. So the lifestyle that I'm creating for myself is not about like losing a certain number of pounds in a year or 3 months or whatever. It's creating a lifestyle that will make it inevitable that I will become like get to the goal weight that I have, or get to a healthy weight, or just become a healthier person. And so all of my all of my ultimate like results are not about meeting the deadline at a certain time, but about who I'm becoming that will continue to work and go down that path. The other thing that I want to bring up and make sure that we really think about is plan ahead for how you're going to deal, not if, but how you're going to deal with setbacks, with forgetfulness, like you forgot about the goal for an entire month and then you picked up the paper and were like, oh shoot, I forgot that I wrote this down, and getting off track. What are you going to make that mean about you? What are you going to make it mean about the goal? And how are you going to move forward? So planning ahead for everything that you already know about yourself is really important, rather than pretending like you're suddenly like not going to experience life as you currently experience it. So what's your thoughts on those last couple things? How do you want to relate them to your personal goals right now? And do you have any questions? I'm so bad at asking like 4 questions at a time.
I really like the assignment, like the idea of examining, like, not the goal necessarily, like what do I want my bank account to look like in 6 months, but like what connecting that with who do I want to be?
What's another question to ask yourself is, what thoughts do I need to think today that'll get me closer to my goal? Like, what do I need to think about myself, about the problem, about the solution? Like, what do I need to believe in order to take one step closer?
Some thoughts I've like coming up from those last 2 comments about
Yeah.
like goals serves me, celebrating wins, like building a lifestyle that, like, so it's inevitable to make that goal. Like, yeah, I think one thing like celebrating results, I think making like real, I want to think back on times that I felt celebrated and like what those, try to make them more, I don't know, like a ritual, like to share with someone. I've been thinking a lot about how like I live alone, and being able to share it, tell someone a win and share it with them is important. And like sometimes I think like, oh, I don't reach out to people to share that with them, and people do want to share that. So maybe it's having someone over for a meal or something little, like, I don't even know what, let's order, and you order pizza, I order pizza. I'm obviously food motivated. But like try to make a ritual with someone of like that. Maybe I have already done that in the past. It doesn't have to be organic, but like be a little bit more intentional about what that celebrating a win could look like, and it being with someone, because it makes it feel real. It makes it feel someone witnessed me doing it instead of me. I don't know, for some reason, like having someone acknowledge it helps. And then, yeah, the lifestyle, I think I'm going to reflect back on what's been working, what hasn't been working in terms of some of the current habits I have, and lean into that. And that idea of it, of giving structure rather than like always having to think of putting momentum behind something, like what's the next step now, what's the next step now, versus just like having that, okay, if I sit down, do a focus mate session for this much amount of time, like, and be diligent in that, like, then yeah, good things can come, is what is coming up for me. Um, those are some of my initial thoughts
So
about this
let me
idea of like
ask you, like,
creating.
who do you think you need to become in order to land your next job? Like, even if you don't know what the job is yet.
I mean, what comes up for me is like I know myself, know what I want to learn and skills I want to build on and what I could deliver.
What
I
about
think
the
is it.
soft
Mhm.
skills that create a great employee? Do you know what they are?
I like working in teams. I like, yeah, the soft skills of, the communication, I think of.
But I mean, like, have you done any research on like what employers say that they want?
Yeah, I definitely have read up on that. I
Yeah.
can't speak to it
So
right now.
yeah, sure. But just to
Yeah.
kind of an example of like who do you want to become? Well, even if I don't know exactly what I want to do, like who I could become is someone that could
Mhm.
like maybe land the next level of employment because
Yeah.
of the skills that I developed. You know what I mean? Those kind of things.
Yeah.
And then another
Yeah.
thing that came up when you were talking is as far as celebrating wins. It's a great idea to like, if that's your goal, imagine what you're gonna do with your first paycheck, like not the whole thing, but like, you know, a celebration. So an
Oh.
example for me was when I decided to land, or when I was going to land my first client, maybe a year and a half ago. I can't remember exactly, but I had this idea in mind. I decided that what I wanted to do was when I went up to Alaska to visit my brother and sister-in-law, that I wanted to take all the four of us out to sushi and have plum wine, because that's like
Yeah.
a favorite of mine, right? And it's like something I very rarely get. So I had like a very distinct picture of what celebrating would look like. And so that's a neuro-linguistic programming technique for coaching. That's not like the type of coaching that I mostly do, but that is an element that I really like to incorporate. And that is that kind of visualizing how
Yeah.
you're going to celebrate your win. And so I don't know if you have something, if something comes to mind for you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it sounds like it's going to
The
be food.
restaurant. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. I have a restaurant in mind. that
Okay, good.
I want to
Awesome. I
go
love
to.
that.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Yay.
cool. Anybody else for those last couple ones, or how you want to utilize them in your current goals? Amanda, I don't know if you know this, but you had unmuted while you were talking to somebody, so I muted you back, but you can unmute if you want. I'm gonna stepped out. So what would you guys say, if you don't have any other specific things on those two, what would you say is your main takeaway from this this new perspective on how to do goals, and what the goal of doing goals is?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is just this realization that SMART goals don't have to be the kind of goals that I set. I feel like, especially in the business realm, like you're just fed it through a damn tube where they're just like SMART goal, SMART goal, SMART goal, make sure that you're doing it right. And this idea that it's okay if that doesn't align, and that's okay if that doesn't work, and that's okay if that's overwhelming. I can do something else and still be successful. I think that's the biggest takeaway for me.
Nice. I love it. And you're right. Like, I get a lot of people on the online space who think that it's their business to ask like what your financial goal is, or what your this goal, or your client goal, or your that goal. And it's like, that is none of your freaking business. And that doesn't have to be how I think about it,
Yeah, I wouldn't say the biggest, but yeah, being in the room with you guys and acknowledging there's different types of goals. I think, I can, when people come alongside, they want to help and they're earnest and they're like, oh, why do you try this? And you should try that. And a lot of unsolicited advice. And like, all you got to do is just and they like, you know, set a schedule or something. Like they're always like very, and it makes me feel like I start to shut down and be like, wow, they make it sound so easy. Why can't I do it? So like being in a room with you guys is really helpful. So thank you.
Good. I'm glad you were able to come. That's awesome. I think that one thing that I've learned, but it's taken me a long time, is to create the self-talk in my own head that makes it so that when people say that kind of shit, it doesn't send me into a thing. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't affect my own headspace. And instead it's like, I get that they think they're being helpful. I get that they think that that is going to work for me. And I'm okay with the fact that I'll smile and nod and go home and do my own thing and be sure, even if it takes longer than I wanted it to, that I'm on track, that I'm where I want to be, that I'm becoming who I want to become, regardless of the fact that they could look on from the sidelines and month after month say, oh, you should just do blah, blah, blah. And they don't see me achieving what I want to be achieving, but I know that I am. So it's not creating brain drama for me anymore when people say that stuff. So that's kind of that can kind of be a goal with the self-talk kind of stuff. Because you can't stop people from saying that. They're going to say that. They don't know better. Any final thoughts, you guys? It has been just at an hour. And if you have any other, this was all of the material I wanted to go over. And I think it'll really help with kind of creating some kind of basic steps. Do you have any other like questions for me or things that you want coached on before we sign off?
I'd say if anyone wants to link up after to do just like a work sesh, we don't even have to review what we came up with, but I do want to spend some time looking at these questions and actually like engaging with it and not avoiding them.
That's really smart. Doing some co-working would be a great idea for that. Oh yeah, Amanda's always down for that, Christina, so you guys should connect.
Yeah. I'll put my info.
Any other thoughts or questions about how to make, like if you do have a thought in mind or a goal in mind, do you have any questions about how to kind of move it to this type of a space?
I don't know if I missed this because I missed a little bit of the last part because I got distracted again. Goddamn. But well, I was actually trying to talk to Andrew about it really quick when he was here, and I was thinking, because he was like, well, what happens when you set a goal and then you don't meet it, and then you also don't become who you want to become, and you just end up being stuck? Like, I was trying to tell him, like, well, isn't that's part of the process, in the sense that you like what he's like saying, well, what if you revert back to like old patterns and like things get worse than they were before?
Sounds like some coaching is needed.
I guess I was kind of saying maybe your goals are not aligning with what you want, and they aren't including enough, relaxation or other things that you value.
That's right.
And
so yeah. So those types of questions come from even the question itself comes from an all or nothing thinking. Like, what if it doesn't work? Whereas I love Christina made the comment about experimenting, which I really like that mentality as well. And I don't know if you saw my Instagram post about cotton candy, but one time my son, who's 7, he we saw on YouTube this video of this guy, the scientist, trying to make cotton candy out of cotton balls, like actually change the components of it to become cotton candy. And the entire process, through the entire process, he's like, I tried this and then it didn't work, and then I had to try this and then it didn't work, and then I tried this and it didn't work. You know what I mean? Or like it sort of worked, but then I had to do more. And when I think like a scientist about my own life, it's so much less dramatic than when it's like, I have to do this right or it doesn't work, you know?
Yeah, that's good. I like
When
that.
it's like, you try it, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And if you like, that perspective is really, really helpful. And then, like you said, your goals need to include you as you are and you as you are becoming. So
Oh, okay.
how do we reconcile those two things, right? Well, there are things about you that you will be leaving behind as you become the next version of yourself. That is inevitable. But there are also things about you that you need to factor in to who you're becoming. Like if you know that you're a person who's not able to be productive or it doesn't align with you to be productive 40 hours a week. Maybe it only aligns with you to be productive 10, then create the life that has that in mind rather than creating a life where you're expecting yourself to do something that you're not aligned with, like working 60 hours a week. Just as an example of like how the way that you set your goals has to be in alignment with who you want to be and how you operate. Doesn't have to change completely. Some things, and again, sorry, it's hard to make this generic because this would be something that I would coach like Andrew on specifically, like if he has a tendency to like, get to burnout point and then veg out, well, does he want that to be a continuing pattern where he overworks and then veges out and then overworks and veges out, which is actually a legitimate thing that people with ADHD sometimes do. So I don't know if other people do also, but like, is that pattern what needs to change, or do you need to create a life where that pattern can be really functional for you and you don't feel bad about it? Did that make any sense?
Yeah, I resonate with that.
forgot.
And something I've been wanting to pay attention to, which could be like a whole other workshop, is like the grieving process of realizing that I had either a goal or a vision of myself that wasn't true. Like I went to school thinking I'd have this job and I'd be do the same job that the people I look up to do, and thinking and I don't know, grieving that like, okay, I do things differently and I don't know if that will align with the lifestyle that will work for me. So yeah, kind of honoring maybe a grieving process so that I can like let go of who I thought I was supposed to be. And that came from what I was told I was supposed to be, kind of thing.
Is it what you always wanted, or is it what you thought you were supposed to want?
Right. Yeah.
Or is that what you're trying to figure out?
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out, and like holding space to grieve it instead of I don't even know what, but the word grieving kind of comes up for me.
Okay.
And
yeah, that's definitely good. Why don't we talk, remind me, and let's have that be the topic of our 15-minute call.
Okay, great.
That would be great. That sounds awesome. Any other thoughts, you guys? Yeah, I bet you resonate a lot with that, Lauren, as well.
Yeah,
Well,
all this is a lot of great stuff. I have to chew on it.
Awesome. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for coming. I had a lot of fun. I love having small groups of interactive people, and you're like my perfect people for that. So I love that. I've been thinking about doing the workshop on self-talk, on positive self-talk. Again, is that something that you guys would be interested in?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll have to ask myself, but yeah.
Yes, I'm interested. I need to
Okay.
make into it too. It's not
Say
just
what?
girls.
No. Yeah, that'd be great. So maybe we'll do that as our next session, and I'll maybe plan it for like next month or something. So I'll keep you guys in the loop. Thank you all for coming. If you scheduled for this morning because I didn't get my scheduling right, then DM me and we'll schedule our 15-minute call for later on this week or next week. And if you haven't scheduled it, either schedule it through the app or you can just DM me and we can figure it out. So, all right, I think that's it. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Lauren's baby.
So good.